from event to event to event and have extremely similar scores. Well, I think most of us can probably attest to the fact that it did not, period. It didn't happen this year whatsoever. And so I don't think it accomplished that part of it, number one. The second part is that if we're trying to give, I don't know how to say it properly, but if we're trying to give a comparison of one to the next, and I mean, I think it's a really wide variation. I think you can honestly go someplace and really receive a 1, and someplace and receive a high 9. And I don't think that that's really very possible for any one team to have happen. So it needs to really be looked at. But then when we go and argue it, one of the biggest things that I found, and I am in favor of having the single score sheet, but I will say that when you had an issue on the score sheet and something was clearly wrong, and you went to the event producer to get some clarification, the answer sort of became, well, I didn't make this sheet, you know, this is the way they said I had to do it, versus in past years when they actually took the time to develop that sheet, they knew it inside and out, and they could provide you with the exact correct answer, and it meant something to them, versus, well, this is what I was told to do, so you're right, but I don't really have an explanation. You have to call, you know, the person who developed the sheet. Right, and I just don't think, because I think really, I mean, let's face it, we all want to win, but I think that we all know when we shouldn't. And it's fine, but when you get a score that's way off, there has to be some way to have the person answer it.
We go to certain like competitions, not for their score sheet for the most part. It's like the venue or the dates or whatever works, that it's like, I don't care whether you like, you know, hair bows better and you like something else better. That it's like, we would all rather, like, we're not going to change our routines from week to week to your score sheet. It's like, I'd rather you like do something else and have a universal score sheet. Even with Worlds, like, we had to change our whole routine because that score sheet's so different. You know?
You're getting into why there's a deviation between competition to competition. First of all, the score sheets primarily, if you do all the skills, it's not the upper half and the lower half, it's thirds. You have a third that's going to be building skills with your pyramids, your stunts, and your baskets. You have a third that's going to be your jumps and tumbling, which is going to be standing, tumbling, running, tumbling, jumps. And then you have a third which is going to be routine-based on your performance, your dance, your choreography, all that sort of thing. The routine-based down at the bottom, if you want to non-standardize something, that would be 3 categories at the bottom, a third of your score sheet, that you could change. Everything else is pretty much, those are our cheerleading skills.
It still weighs differently at different events. That's what we're trying to say. If everything is the same other than the bottom score, then I wouldn't have a problem taking second or third or whatever. But it depends.
But one of the biggest things I would say is I don't know how judges can be different on difficulty. Like how you think something is worth a 4.9 and I think it's worth a 5.5. Why can't we have, especially if it's a USASF sanctioned event, have someone from USASF say, okay, I watched that routine, everyone's difficulty is a 4.9, and then you judge the technique. I don't know why something like that's not possible. Because this way you have someone from the event, or if it's Jam Brands or it's Spirit Sports, you have your company say, you sit on that panel and say, everyone, this is according to our rubric, you get this score, and that's a mandatory score for all judges, and then they judge the technique and everything else.
And I like that when I go to different competition companies, like they're like, maybe I have a team that's strong in stunting and I have another team that's like strong in tumbling that isn't really stunters, and I can put this team at this competition because maybe this competition kind of values like stunting more on their score sheets. But for me, what I like as a gym owner want to know is that if I go to a USASF event, that those judges are going to be qualified.
If we're going to truly legitimize the sport, I think there has to be standardized scoring. Okay, I do not believe that standardized scoring. Me personally, I don't think that it necessarily keeps us from being creative. There's 100 different ways to score a touchdown. You know, I think there's 100 different ways to do the pull up or do the switch up or things like that. I think that we can still be creative. But the question is, industry-wide, okay, are we going to grow this sport by making it legitimate and making it like baseball and football and basketball, where a basket is 2 points, a three-pointer is 3 points? Is that going to make our sport grow? Or are we going to grow more by, you know, hey, who put on the best show today? I don't know
It's
the
a good
answer,
question.
that's something to think about.
I judged in Mexico a few weeks ago, and we had to sign our name at the bottom of every single score sheet. I'm not saying that we need to go to that, because Lord knows we don't want gym owners and parents stalking judges, but there needs to be some kind of accountability, and then there needs to be more intensive training, then there needs to be follow-up, and I know some event companies said yesterday that they do a judge's evaluation. I know of other companies who've done that as well, that hold those people accountable. And if they're not doing a good job, and if they're not following through, maybe they're not going to be trained as intensive as, Debbie was, but the follow-up will add to that training and hold them accountable for those scores. That way, across the board, okay, this person is out of range consistently, they're lazy on what's going on, they don't need a judge anymore. And it will help all of us too. I mean, if it goes as far as printing the names of the judges and the programs again, or whatever it takes, so that we can all be confident in who's sitting on that panel.
Accountability and transparency, and I think we've said it at the last 3 meetings. I know we talked about it in Las Vegas. We talked about it yesterday. Just everyone having a copy of everyone's score in every category.
Oh, yeah,
because
talk
I
about
know,
that, what you
I
said
was complaining
yesterday.
about my stunt one time, and then the judge came up to me and goes, your score stunt is the highest in the division. And I was like, okay. So that made sense to me. So then I knew I needed to work on my dance or whatnot. But if we had that at the end of each day, everyone's score from every category, I know as a coach what I need to work on for that night. So I think transparency and accountability is
And
primary.
why would the
I know now we have a varsity score sheet and a Jamboree score sheet. Why is it not a USASF score sheet? That's whose rules we follow. We're forced to follow as
We vote
coaches.
to eliminate January score.
Why are we not? And why are they not the ones that are sanctioning the judges? Which I know that we are, and we talked about it last night, and I know that that's how it's working. But why is it not a USASF score sheet?
So that when this moves forward to World's Advisory or goes back to the event producers, they can actually say, look, 55 coaches, these are the names, are wanting this. Now we have more concrete instead of this is just what we heard or consensus. Is there anyone in disagreement with that? I think we should put our names in our gyms so that things can move forward in a more timely fashion than just a consensus aspect.
Everybody, yes? By raise their hands?
Yes.